Okay, on the issue of the cost of war, our next question is a video. It's from Peter Thornton in Canberra in the ACT.
I'm one of 29,000 civilian and permanently disabled TPI veterans. Over the decades, our compensation pay has diminished dramatically, to a point that our economic loss only equates to approximately 65% of the minimum wage. Outside of welfare supplementation, how are TPI veterans expected to live on that?
Yeah, Tim Fisher, and we should note for the audience, for anyone who doesn't know, that TPI stands for Total and Permanent Incapacity.
And there's EDIs and various other categories too, and clearly both sides of politics, the Australian government of the day has an absolute responsibility to look after our veterans and our wounded veterans and our TPIs. And yes, there was a slippage, and yes, there has been one lot of legislation go through since the last elections which corrected one of those slippages, but there is unfinished business, and I hope that a fair play will apply. It's the least we can do, because there is a commitment that you gave, you served, and you are now by degrees incapacitated. That's formally assessed, and you deserve recompense and support, and especially support in respect of post-traumatic stress disorder that is impacting too many.
Are you saying effectively 65% of the minimum wage is not enough?
Look, I won't go into the detail because it's a very complex area, but to be fair, there has been legislation that Michael Ronson brought in since the last elections which corrected one large area of slippage in the levels of pension to veterans. There are other areas yet to be rectified, and it is extremely complex. The principle should be a fair go, a fair outcome, and full support, especially to the wounded.
Arthur Sinodinos.
There were some changes after last election to the indexation of some of these payments, but I'm aware that veterans and retired military personnel have some further grievances in this regard. When they can be properly acknowledged or addressed, I'm not sure in the current budgetary environment.
Are they more than grievances? I mean, do they have a very strong case for arguing that they've been left behind here?
Well, I think in sheer numerical terms, they have been left behind, just based on the numbers that Peter and I think Tim have mentioned. The debate always is how far you can go over a period to rectify some of this.
And I suppose the obvious question is, does the government, no matter what the cost, owe it to them to actually rectify this?
And that's always the question, and we've done some things, and perhaps we need to go further in others, but that may not be possible in this particular budget.
Well, Tony, I think actually what the government's done, and Arthur will correct me if I'm wrong, is they've addressed the issue of the defined benefits pensions that some service personnel get. But with veterans' pensions and other related pensions, they've changed the indexation rate to make it a lower indexation rate. They've actually cut the indexation rate for those other types of pensions.
Caroline.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I would like to have a conversation about the amount of money that the Australian government is spending on commemorating Anzac and the First World War as compared to the amount of money that's being allocated to veterans in need. The Australian government is spending approximately $430 million on commemorating the First World War. A way to understand that is Canada is spending zero, absolutely nothing. The UK is spending about $90 million and France about $90 million. Germany, $7 million, so $430 million. So we need to have a public discussion about why Australia is spending so much money, what it's been spent on, and whether some of that money might not be better spent.
I was going to quickly go back to Don Tate, our earlier question. I mean, you've heard that question. You were also shot. As you say, you spent 2 years recuperating, but I think you also ended up on a TPI, didn't you?
I am a TPI pension, and I would like to say, as a TPI veteran, that is a national disgrace what both governments have done to the veterans who fought for this country. Our pensions and our superannuations have been terribly eroded right through the years, and each party says that they will correct it when they come into power, and as soon as they do, they completely ignore it. It's it's a national disgrace.
Arthur,